Thank you for tuning into this video about the Supreme Court of the United States, or as I often refer to them as SCOTUS. It's kind of the acronym. It stands for Supreme Court of the United States. Kind of similar to the president is often nicknamed POTUS, President of the United States. Just an easier way to simplify things when you're writing about them. Now, let's talk a little bit about the Supreme Court. First of all, they don't really have any job requirements in the Constitution. In fact, Article 3 is very vague and very skeletal. There's not much detail to it. So it's leaves a lot up to interpretation. There's absolutely no job requirements listed. So anyone could become Supreme Court Justice, a kid, an older person, someone from another country. There's no limitations to this type of job. There are some limitations, though. There's only 9 justice positions, so a president has to wait until there's an opening to replace one of them. They do get nominated by the president, and they have to get approved by the Senate. So the president typically is choosing people that he knows are going to get approved. Is some random 14-year-old going to get approved by the Senate? Not likely. Likely it's going to be someone that has judging experience or legal teaching experience to get into this type of position. It typically takes years of judging to be considered competent for this type of job. They do serve for life, and that's why it's also important to choose good candidates. They serve for life unless they decide to retire or get impeached. So there's no limitations there. And kind of the benefit of serving for life is that they never deal with politics. So they never have to worry about getting elected or campaigning, whereas the president and the people in Congress have to worry about getting elected all the time. So if a justice makes a bad decision or a decision that people don't like, at least, they don't have to worry about their job. They keep it. So there's no risk there. There's no pressure to conform to political parties or political viewpoints. I already mentioned most are former lawyers or judges. They typically are of the same ideology as the president. The president wants to pick someone that's going to be on the court for a long time and make an impact beyond their 4 to 8 years. So President Obama picked 2 more liberal candidates when he had the opportunity to do so. Justice Sotomayor and Justice Kagan were chosen during his administration because there were openings, and they are more liberal-leaning in their decisions. And they're probably going to be on the court for the next 30 or 40 years, depending on how long they choose to serve or whether or not something comes up. And there they are, the 9 justices. You don't really need to know any of their names, although it will be important to know that John Roberts is the Chief Justice. He's in charge of things. Now, often get asked about how the Supreme Court gets cases. They essentially get 9,000 cases proposed to them every single year, and they get to choose amongst those cases which ones they want to hear, except for a few cases that go directly to them. Like if there's a lawsuit that's between states, like let's say Minnesota suing Wisconsin, that would be a case that goes directly to the Supreme Court. Or let's say there's a case that involves an ambassador of the United States. That would be a case that would go directly to the Supreme Court as well, because they're not in a state. Now, out of those 9,000 petitions, they only really hear about 100 to 120 cases, because there's so much work that goes into each of these cases and so much time that needs to be taken to make sure you make a good decision. Now, when they've decided on a case, they issue what's called a Writ of Certiorari, and it's a order that basically tells the lower courts to send that court case to them. So it's telling the lower courts that they want to receive their materials. Now, to issue the Writ of Certiorari, they only need 4 justices, so 4 of the 9 need to say they want to hear that case. So if they want to pick a case, it takes just a minority of them. They typically choose cases that have major implications, ones that deal with rights or the Constitution. Like an example from the spring would be the marriage ban, the same-sex marriage bans that were struck down by the Supreme Court. That was a case that they chose because it has civil rights or liberties basically at the heart of it. And the Constitution, of course, was used to back it up.